Okay, let's get started with our fabric map. So, you have your map, you have hopefully your copy of the patterns, you've got your fabric key. Good idea to lay that where you can see it. And I do not have my fabric in order, but that's okay. So I am going to just get started putting the fabric down on the map. I will tell you I have this sideways because it doesn't really work very well to film it the other way. I did take the time before starting to press my fabrics just because I'm fairly persnickety about them being flat and smooth. I don't know. Do I press my clothes? No. But fabric I press. In fact, I have a pretty small craft room, and I realize that lots of people don't even have a craft room, and that I'm really fortunate, but my craft room is also my office, and my current struggle is that I don't have really room for an ironing board, so I just have a little pressing mat, and it's just not nearly as fulfilling as an ironing board, but that's okay. It's convenient, it's close to home. My office is in one area, and then you walk through the door to what I call the go office, which is my finished third car garage that's an office because there wasn't room to run the business in the house. Anywho, you didn't ask about any of that. I've got my fabric glue. I have tried a lot of different glue. A lot. I've used regular glue sticks. I've used fabric glue sticks. I've used like the Elmer school glue sticks, which I actually don't hugely mind the Elmer's glue sticks, but this very project is what led me to swear off glue sticks. And I don't think you can see it, but I had an incident with, I'm a nerd, with the disappearing purple Elmer's glue stick. And the purple stayed underneath my fabric after I pressed it. So I am cautious about using anything with color. Before starting the video, I pressed both my backing and then the map. So now we're gonna start just in numerical order gluing things down, and please know you can pull the items that you glue up. You're not gonna mess up, it's gonna be okay. When I'm gluing, I use little dots, and I typically probably place them about an inch apart. This glue is technically temporary, so you do still have to make sure you're stitching everything down. What I'm doing here as well, you can trim your fabrics first, or you can just allow them to kind of overlap the edge. I put this project in a frame, so I'm gonna let them overlap the edge. It is an 11 by 14 intentionally, so that if you're not quilty, you don't have to make it into a quilt. I just put it in an 11 by 14 frame and hang it on the wall. Now, before I glue everything down, I'm trimming off just the little fuzzy edges on the sides of the fabric because those bother me. So I'm trimming those off. They don't bug you, you can leave them. It doesn't matter. So I'm just going and trimming those off. I can tell that this little piece has been handled a little more. So if you're trimming, you probably want to trim not over your background. It's not a big deal if you do, but if you want to keep extra threads off the background, then trim either over a trash can or the carpet or whatever. You know, they're little tiny threads, so the vacuum will pick them up. You can see I'm gonna do this about the same distance. These are a little farther apart as far as my glue. And then again, I'm just gonna line it up with spot 2 on the map and then smooth my hands over it to just make sure it presses down. On to number 3, which is one of my favorites. Watch, I said that and now I'm not seeing number 3. I know I just had it. Is it hidden? Is it stuck somewhere? Is it still on my ironing board? Probably. Guys, you'll love this. It was on the bottom of my chair. I was sitting on it. So, number 3, and I'm just gonna go, these I'm doing a little further apart. You don't wanna use too much of the glue because you do need to get it wet to dissolve it, to utilize the temporary portion of the glue. Now, I am gluing down piece 3. I should have trimmed it a little bit first, perhaps, but I didn't, and you know, that's okay. I can always go back and trim after the fact, but the thing to remember is the little dash lines are hidden. So this is going to be covered up. Here, I'll give you a better feel. By number 4 and number 5. It's so, because I like to overlap, everything's gonna be covered. You won't necessarily see the edges. I do a lot of times if I love to either, just making a big mess here. I love to use pinking shears to trim, but like this, the only part of number 4 that's gonna show in your finished project is this part right here. In terms of the edge, sorry, I should say that better. The only part of the edge of number 4 that's gonna show is right there. So just doing my little glue dots. It really doesn't take very long once you've figured out what you're doing. Now, I will admit that when I'm figuring out what I'm doing, sometimes it takes me quite a while. Sometimes I've basically almost finished a project and realized that I really don't love it. Now, there are a couple spots that you can, in this, you're gonna be able to see your numbers through the fabric. If that is going to bother you, it would bother me, you can totally just trim some of your backing and basically layer it. The number 3 is going to be covered in the final design by some of the flowers. So I'm not going to worry about the number 3. The number 4 and the number 9 are the ones that I will cover, and possibly number 7. So I will go ahead, trim this. Really not using my correct scissor form here as I try to reach around. So I'm just gonna cut, I think actually I'll probably do a spot. I'll put it under number 4. And then I'll do another one over number 7. So I'm just loosely, doesn't have to be perfect, no rules. So I will just put this right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and glue straight to this right now. I'm using a little more glue than I normally would because it's not gonna show, well, none of the glue is gonna show on the top, but that way I've got my number 4 covered and it won't drive me crazy, but I can see it through the fabric. And then the number 7, I'm gonna go ahead and do right now too, while I'm on it. And these dots are a little bit big, but that's okay. Also, no rules there. So now I'm just gonna flip the number 4 back, put some teeny dots, and press it back. Then the other spot that I'm gonna wanna cover is number 9, I think. But we'll see when we get there. Now I've got number 6, and I'm just gonna make sure that it's about the right size before I glue that down. Such a pretty fabric. I love yarn dyed fabric. It just seems so much more, the colors seem so much more vivid. Okay. Got my trimming done. So then I'm just gonna do my little dots. You might, I'm actually gonna grab a scrap of fabric. You might just want to wipe the end of your glue as you go if you find that your dots are getting big. So put that down. I will tell you that when it comes time to lay the orange fabric out, I will probably trim along the edge of this teal. But I'll show you that as I do it. Also, I skipped number 5. So perhaps I should put number 5 down now. Oh, I swear sometimes I have it together, guys. I really do, but not always. As you can see, I love houndstooth. Never met a houndstooth I didn't like. So I'll do that. And then number 7, am I right that I'm ready for? 4, 5, 6, okay. So number 7, we've already got covered, so it's not gonna show. I am going to refer to the placement, so I can see right here that I've got this the little line right there. I can still see those dotted lines, so I'm going to use that to line up number 7. And in the pattern, you get in the printed pattern, you can see there's a page with the map printed out for you, so you can refer to it, because sometimes you want that. And as we layer, you might have questions, so you can refer to that. Okay, so number 7, number 8, this is one of my favorites. This is the softest fabric. I'm a sucker for the texture and how fabric feels. Perhaps you are as well. So, number 8. So just gonna go right there. Now it's time for number 9. As I look at number 9, I am going to lay it out and see if it lays out. I don't think it does. I'm turning it all the ways just in case I can cover up my number 9. But it does not appear that that will work. So I will cut another little completely imperfect piece of white just from the edge that I will trim to somewhat straight edges, but it does not have to be the size of the full piece. All it needs to cover is the number that's gonna potentially show through. And in future projects, we'll use a different fabric so it won't show through as much. And we will also have lighter gray. But mainly it's going to be the fabric that makes the difference. So the reason I'm not concerned about it being the same size as the actual cut piece is that I'm going to be stitching. The stitching on this, I backstitched through all the red lines. So it will be completely stitched down. I'm not worried about that. So I've got number 9. I'm going to go ahead, put that down. And that way it's right there. So smooth that down. Number 10 goes here. Number 10 is Liberty fabric, which is, I love Liberty fabric. Obviously, I love all fabric. Actually, no, I don't love all fabric. I don't love scratchy fabric. If it makes me feel like I could exfoliate my feet with it, I don't love it. But if it's soft and smooth, like this Liberty Lawn, then count me in. So I'm gonna put number 10 down. Number 11 is one that's in the corner, and I'm just gonna put that down. You just lay them down in order. I have tried to figure out, people always comment on my stitching and say, oh, I could never do that. So I've been attempting to figure out how to help people do that for quite some time. Maybe not quite some time, maybe about a year. So when I figured this out, I was very curious if it would work, and I think it does. I will, when I'm starting a new project and I'm kind of laying everything out, I will move stuff and move stuff and move stuff. So, kind of funny to just be putting it where I know it's gonna go. I ordered a Christmas project today that I think will be really fun. So I hope people like it. Okay, these flowers, I didn't trim it, but I wanted it to kind of have the full roses. That's a Heather Ross fabric. Obviously I have fabric issues. Okay, so now it's time for number 14, and that one is the one with the zigzag edge. So all you're gonna do, let's see here. So I'm just gonna cut right here. And one thing to do if you are worried that you're not going to like what you are cutting, or you're unsure, I could also flip it and cut here. So the pin in your kit is a friction pin, and I love these pins because they go away if you hit it with a hairdryer or press it. So heat will make them go away. You can just check though, and we'll use the friction pin a lot more momentarily. So I will draw out what I'm thinking if I'm unsure, or in the case of having a kit like this where I don't want to run out of fabric, then that's when it's really nice to have the friction pin. I use a lot of vintage fabric and feed sack fabric. Frequently I'll only have a little scrap. But of course I will get attached to the little scraps and use them in every project until I don't have any left. So that's the truth of the matter. So I'm just gonna lay that down. And like I said, when I press it or if I hit it with a hairdryer, that ink is gonna go away. Then 16. I lost it too. What did I do with it? It's right under the paper or the fabric. Okay. So you do want to make sure, there's little bits of thread under this, and you do want to make sure you don't accidentally glue down or trap thread under your piece. It's not the end of the world, but it will drive me crazy, so I try not to. Okay, so I've got 1 through 15 now, and they're all glued down. So it's time for piece 16. I am going to use my handy dandy pen again, and piece 16 goes up in the corner. I am just going to, I really want actually to use this, I think, in the corner. But I could use this over here. So I think here, maybe I do this. Yes, this is what I'm going to do. So I'm gonna lay it over the top just because that's gonna allow me to make sure that I'm covering the parts I want to cover. And then I'm just gonna loosely trace where I think I want to cut. That way, if I make a boo-boo and realize, oh, I didn't want to cut there, I've checked it out before picking up the scissors and not being able to go back. So I'm going to kind of cut it in a rounded fashion. I don't even know if that's a thing, but you can see I just kind of traced along and trimmed it. So then I will do that. I will trim that, and then we'll glue that down. Actually, I'm gonna go from this side. That way I can see what I'm trimming. And then I will use the other pieces of this fabric and the orange here, and I'll cut pieces of that out that then I use to embellish this. So it's a fun little way to kind of make it, I guess, look like you've got some applique going on, and just add a little fun to your project. I love these scissors. You can hear my iron beeping. Means I really did iron. These are, I think they're called they're called Perfect Scissors. And they've got a serrated blade, and it just makes it easier. So now, remember I told you earlier that I also, look, right there. Y'all needed to see that. So, again, it's not perfect. I trimmed it a little closer probably than I should have right there. It's okay. I will totally cover that up with stitching. So I'm not worried about that at all. What I am going to do is pull this about 1/4 inch back. And that is because, maybe a 1/2 inch back. So I just want it to kind of stick out, and then I'm going to loosely, again, gotta love my pen, loosely draw along the edge, and that way I know where I can trim. So I know right here that I can trim this up and have less bulk under my fabric. So that's always nice. It's not going to be perfect at all because that's just not how I roll, but it will work. And then this little piece, I'm gonna trim a little bit too. Okay, now I'm gonna go right back and place my little dots, and I'm going to just, for this, I'm gonna use more glue. So this is pretty much craziness right here. I'm gonna do a little skinny line along the edge, not super fat, but that way it will stick pretty well, because I want to make sure this part especially is well stuck to our fabric, or to the piece, I guess is how to describe that. So I know I've got my little spot right there. You will probably end out with a spot somewhere along this project, and look at that. The 16 could have shown through, but it doesn't because it's covered by a green leaf. Yay, leaves. Okay, so I'm gonna do little dots here, and then probably just another line kind of back here. And then I'll smooth that. So I've got that in the corner. Now, I then want to cut some different pieces out to use as embellishments. So, hopefully I didn't hit the camera there too hard. What I did on all of these, they're layered. So this is just one piece right here. This is, I believe, 2 different flowers. This is 2. So you just want to choose a couple different things. I am all about the teal and all about the purple. And I'm just gonna throw caution to the wind and trim. These have kind of the white edge around them, so it works pretty well to just go a little bit outside of the white. And then I'll just make a little pile for myself off to the side. What I should do, I don't have one right here. Well, I have one, but it's not empty. I'll make it empty. So little dishes like that can come in handy when you cut your pieces out, just like you have your buttons and stuff that go along with the kit. So it's convenient if you're someone like me who will misplace things in the middle of a project. It's nice to just kind of collect things in a little container like that, and then they're just sitting right there when it's time to use them. So tricky to cut while you're supposed to be showing people what you're doing. I have a little tiny pair of these that would probably be even easier to use. I'll have to grab them for next time. So again, just loosely cutting around. If I get super close, that's okay. If I get farther, that's okay too. No big deal. And I will do this. I'll, that way I'll just trim across the edge kind of if it seems a little easier to not have the bulk of the fabric still hanging out. So then you can also just go in and snip out the little pieces after the fact. It is really easiest with some sharp scissors. Like, you want your good fabric scissors that your kids are afraid to touch. I was putting stuff away the other day and came across some Stampin' Up! Markers, and the package from, however many years ago said, "Moms, do not touch," because they were markers, and my guys would have taken the markers. So we'll do this guy right here. It's a girl, it's a flower, so she's got to be a girl, right? It's partly tricky because this, with it just being one layer of fabric, a lot of times I'm using these to cut things with fusible on the back. If you wanted to put fusible on the back, you could, but I will caution you that it can get pretty thick pretty quickly, and you will have sore hands when you're trying to stitch through it sometimes. There are some brands or kinds that are better than others. I think, I can't even remember. I think my mom likes Steam a Seam too light, but it will work really good. And the one nice thing about using fusible is then your fabric is less likely to fray around the edge, which when you're cutting it like this can be something that happens just because you aren't cutting straight lines. So that's another bonus if you use it. But there are some that are so thick you will be ready to scream or ready to cry because you'll feel like you've totally ruined your project. That is one thing that will quickly put a damper on things, because you will be trying so hard to pull your, I shouldn't be cutting right on top of this, I've got thread everywhere. You'll be trying to pull your thread through and it's miserable. So remember earlier I said I was going to cover the 9. So I've got my little 9 right here, and I'm just going to layer these 2 little pieces here. I'll put this one down first. Should have wiped off the edge of my glue, but I didn't. Just want to make sure, the one thing I just realized, you do want to make sure that you pay attention. If you don't trim your fabrics, you want to make sure you pay attention and don't go too far outside the line, where if you're gonna put it in a frame, it'll be covered up. If you're not gonna frame it, it's not such a big thing. So I am I'm just gonna kind of lay this here like this. It'll overlap. Then I want to do a little purple up in here. So get that. Excuse me. Such a springy project. Kind of funny to be doing it in the fall, but that's okay. Okay, so I've got my little purple, and then I think I'm gonna go with this one, and I'm only gonna do one down towards the bottom. So I will just finish this up, and then I'll get those glued down. Then the last thing that I'm going to want to do before I start stitching is the words. So I'll trim the phrases, I'll trim those pieces off the edge, and then glue those down where I want those to go. And then it'll be time to stitch, which is actually kind of the, in my opinion, the fun part of the project. I notice that if I'm stitching, I can't have my phone in my hands. So I'm not scrolling social media. I call it the death scroll. I just, you sit on the couch at night, and before you know it, you've wasted an hour randomly scrolling through social media or reading news articles or whatever else you might do. Okay, you guys, I'm realizing that I should have trimmed this along the bottom. As I pay attention, well, as I didn't pay attention. So I'm going to cut this a little bit off because I want to still have things showing. So I'm just going to trim it like this, which if you paid attention, if I had paid attention, oh, that was a bad trim. You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to trim that with pinking shears because it won't, well, maybe, we'll see. This could be interesting. You're probably thinking, oh my gosh, I wonder if this girl's going to ruin her project. I bet so. Nobody will really know. Well, you guys will know, but no one else will really know. Okay, here we go. All right, that way I've got space there, and then I'm gonna trim my words out. I'm gonna actually do that with a rotary cutter, and then I will be back to glue those down. And oh, I forgot this guy. Gotta glue this down too. Actually, I'm gonna wait on that until I cut my phrases. So I'll be right back after I trim those. All right, now that I've got those cut, I'm going to figure out where I want to put my little pieces. And I will lay them out before I glue them down, because I think that it's quite possible I'll do something I don't like and I want to fix it before I stitch. So there aren't rules about where stuff needs to go. I'm just like, initially I had purple flowers up here, but because of where I put this, I feel like, I guess maybe if I do them upside down like that, that would work. So first, I will trim this a little bit, and then Josie's getting irritated at something outside. Hopefully it's not a big threat. I always laugh at that. There's a meme. My kids are teenagers. We speak meme around here. So there's one that talks about, it has a dog. I should show, I wish I could flash to Josie right now, but I would goof up the placement of the camera, and it's too big of a pain in the rear to switch. But anyway, it talks about, it's a picture of this puppy, and it says, so far today I've saved Mom from 15 Amazon delivery drivers, 3 mailmen, and a sketchy looking plastic bag in the backyard. That just always cracks me up, because, you know, Josie is really, nothing scares her more than the sketchy plastic bag. And it's so funny. It's always when it's so windy and you know, if the dog parent wants to go try to rescue or take away the sketchy plastic bag, you're out there chasing it around your backyard and you can't catch it. At least in Kansas, you can't catch it because it's so windy that it moves before you can grab it in your hands. Okay, so I'm gonna put on this, I'm gonna start at the bottom with the roses, and I'm gonna go up. I should probably have waited to glue that down, but that's okay. Like I said, no rules. So I've got the roses, and I'll do that and smell. And then finally, I'll do the stop. And I'll go ahead, I kind of always like it a little bit off. So then I'll put this one closer this way. Maybe not. Maybe I'll do it right there. That works. It will work. Now, we've got everything glued down except this guy. I found him. He's blue, so he can be a boy. I found him in my little dish that I was like, that's kind of a handy thing to do. Yeah, he was out of the way, so then I didn't even notice. So I think it might be kind of fun to put him over here. Maybe right here. I'm gonna do him right there. Then, now it's time to do your lines, which is always one of my favorite things. So you're gonna want a ruler. Grab one. this is actually, ideally, I would have a longer ruler, but for this time today, this will work. So, the only reason I say a longer one is because if you are just wanting to do something more basic in terms of your stitching, you can just make long lines. So I've got projects, let's see, here's one. Sometimes I will, let's see where I would have done it. So like right here, hopefully you can see this. It's kind of a trick, but I've drawn lines and some of them are pretty long. So here, I sometimes will just, when I first started, I would draw lines about every 1/2 inch apart. And then I would just do the running stitch. I wouldn't really do anything different. I would just do my little straight stitches, and that's fine. So you can do that. I recommend at first starting kind of in the bottom corner and start with your first line. The nice thing, I'm gonna turn it. The nice thing about these rulers is it's real easy to line things up. So you can see your previous line. All right, so these rulers are great because you can see your lines and they have the 3/8 inch mark. I feel like if I put the stitching a 1/4 inch apart, it's too close. And if I put it a 1/2 inch apart, it's too far away. So I landed on 3/8, and it works for me. Sometimes I will, if I'm not using one of these rulers, I'll just do things based on the width of a ruler or something like that. So that always works too. And with the friction pins, if you go over a line more, it does get darker, so you can see it a little better. So when I've got the things that I've added kind of as embellishments, I don't draw the lines on those because I like to stitch those differently to kind of show them off. I definitely want this to stand out more than the blue fabric, so I stitch that as one piece. So we do this, we just keep drawing our lines. Enclosed in your kit or in your pattern, there's also a diagram showing what stitches I used where. And like I said, you can always just do straight lines. There is nothing wrong with that. And if you're not an embroidery person, I would just do that to start with. Then if you decide that you want to do something more, you can, but you don't have to. So I recommend drawing your lines like down in this corner here. And then if you haven't really stitched before, give it a try before you draw lines on your entire piece. Because if you decide that you just really don't want to go crazy, then you know you do want to draw the lines. If you find that you're thinking you want to get a little more detailed, you can do that too. On a lot of these things, though, I just follow the fabric. That's my favorite thing to do because no lines are required and it's really pretty fun. So I've got my lines drawn just right here and I am going to thread a needle and just do some running stitch. And I will definitely show you how to do that. So I'll do a close-up video here of the running stitch and how to do that. And then I'll come back. So we'll see you soon. Okay, I said a minute ago that I was going to start with the running stitch, but I lied and I'm starting with the back stitch. So I'm going to just stitch around the little flower here to make sure I get it down and don't cause the fabric to fray too much or anything as I'm going over this area. So I'm gonna do that. And then I'll do the back stitch. Not the back stitch, then I'll do the running stitch. First, the back stitch. So with the back stitch, you are doing exactly what it says. You're going back. So I'm gonna come up, bring my needle up, probably about 1/8 of an inch in from the end of my line. And then I go back. So I bring it up and then I'm gonna go back and pull it down. And then I'm gonna move again about 1/8 of an inch forward and bring my needle up. Might have to swap hands here. And then again, just go back down. So the back stitch, you're just backtracking kind of. You know, you I guess it's kind of like you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And that's what you're doing with backstitch. We are finally in Kansas having some fall weather, so that has been lovely and hopefully continues. Especially with Halloween right around the corner. So this is the back stitch. You're just bringing the needle up and then moving a step back. Sometimes, I don't know if I can manage this on camera. Let's see here. So here's what I would do. Sometimes I go like this and I get just really brave. Not really brave, I probably get kind of lazy. And I will stick my needle here. Okay, so I'm gonna go down for the back, and then rather than just pulling it down and up, I will, let's see here if I can do it close to the actual correct length. It's tricky trying to keep this on camera. Nope. Trying to show you when I actually bring it up. Let's see here. Maybe, oh, almost. Okay, there. I did get it through. So that way, I'll just pull it through 2 at once. So again, it allows me to keep my needle on the top of my fabric, but definitely easier said than done when you're trying to show people what you're doing. So I do occasionally get lazy and do it that way. That is the back stitch. I seem to always make my lines for the samples longer than they need to be. So perhaps I will work on changing that.